So this is the only hour I get to think each week and have new ideas and new insights that help my team innovate and help our culture. That's what the executive across the table from me said when I asked him, now that we've been coaching for 6 months and you've been coming to executive coaching sessions, what's the most valuable thing you've gotten out of this? And he said, this is the 1 hour I get each week to think and have insights that help me and my team and our culture. And I thought that's really interesting. And so for the next 9 years, I hear this with leader after leader after leader. And I thought, there's something to this. It's great that they get to think clearly while they have a coach. But I was working in a company that had 55,000 employees. And I wondered, well, when the executive is not in my coaching session and he or she is working the rest of the 60 or 70 hours a week, are they not doing their best thinking? And what about all those employees who don't even have access to an executive coach? So I did a survey of all 55,000 employees, and the question was, where do you do your best thinking and have your insights and ideas about problems at work? What percentage of the people do you think at that company had new ideas, insights, and solutions to problems at work while they were at work? Just shout out some percentages. What percentage of employees have their best ideas at work, about work? 25%. 5, 10, 15, 0. Now, I usually would say higher than 0. That's good. I usually count on an HR professional audience being optimistic. You are not optimistic. And that's okay. And I don't have a prize, but that's the first time anyone in any audience has ever said 0. Nobody's doing good thinking at work. Nobody. Well, in this particular company, 33% of the employees said, I do my best thinking at work about problems at work while I'm with my team members where we can do something about it. That meant that the other 67% of those employees at that company said, I don't have my best ideas about work at work. It's always away from work. When I'm not thinking about work, when I'm not around my team members, even when I'm working at home, I'm not having my best ideas about work. It happens some other place. So let me ask you, where do you have your best ideas and come up with solutions to problems at work? Where do you have those ideas? On the commute to and from work. Where else?
Shower.
In the shower? Where else? There's a couple of showers over here. Yeah, where else? In the middle of the night, where else? On the boat. Right. So it turns out we have our best ideas when our brains are in a certain mode. Not just in the shower, because that could be really problematic to have a team meeting and everybody's ideas have to happen in the shower. But when we're in the shower or driving home from work or taking a walk, our brain is in a current state that allows us to have new ideas and new insights and better thinking. And why is that? Well, there's some simple neuroscience behind that. When we're doing these things, the emotional part of our brain, our limbic system, is in a neutral to slightly positive state. We're not negative or threatened or triggered. And we're not at our favorite sports game where we're cheering and we're overly excited. Our emotions are neutral to slightly positive. And we're also not even thinking about the problem. When our emotions are in that state and we're not thinking about the problem, then we have a better chance of having ideas and insights right here in our prefrontal cortex, this little spot right behind your forehead. So that's the state that our brain is when we're trying to cultivate culture, when we're trying to be a better human at work, when we're trying to come up with insights and ideas and innovation. So, short of having all of your work move to the shower, which violates or should violate everybody's HR policy here, just for the record. What can you do about that? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So it's going to be 4 steps to spark your thinking and to spark the thinking of others who are working with you so they can have those aha moments, insights, and solutions about work while they're at work. We can create some of those same conditions that happen on the boat or during the walk or while you're in shower by doing these 4 things. So the first one is actually on us. We have to acknowledge that the people that work around us and the people we interact with are capable of better thinking. Now, I know we're all in the HR business, and we work around people who do really, really silly, stupid, crazy stuff all the time. But when we come to work the next day and we need to get information from them, or we're trying to solve a budget problem, or we have a new competitor, we can't have the view that they are not a good thinker because yesterday they did something really, really stupid, right? We have to do what Nancy Klein, an executive coach, author, and researcher says. We have to have a positive philosophical choice about the person in front of us. And it's the choice we make that says the person in front of us, no matter who they are, is fully capable, they're whole, they're intelligent, they're capable of good thinking, they're probably full of love, and they're resourceful. They can do things on their own. All I have to do is trigger the best thoughts out of them. So the first step in cultivating culture and sparking new thinking in others is on us. And that's to regard the people that are around us and that work for us as capable of better thinking. All right, so how do we spark the best thinking out of them? Step 2 is to ask them really good questions that spark their brain. And one of those types of questions is called a future-focused question. This is when we ask people things like, so when this is totally solved 6 months from now, what do you see happening? What does success look like? What do you hear customers saying? How do you feel about coming to work when this is totally resolved? We don't have people think about the problem. We get them off of the problem and focused on future success. The second type of question that we ask is a scale question. Now, I know people think it's not really a thing to measure somebody's brain or their thinking, but really it does spark new insights. And it sounds like this. So let's say we're working with someone and we are all in the midst of a budget crisis. The HR budget is going to be cut. And we're all kind of in a panic and we don't know what to do. A thinking question to ask someone on the team is, on a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is really clear about your thinking and how to solve this budget problem, and a 1 is, I don't even know what a budget is. On a scale of 1 to 10, where is your thinking about this budget situation right now? And they say, oh, it's probably a 5. What makes that a 5 for you instead of a 1? Well, I know what budgets are. I've seen them before. We've had cuts before, so it's not totally unfamiliar. And then the next question is, what's the one thing you need to think about that moves your thinking from a 5 to a 6? And they'll stop for a minute and look around, and then they'll say, well, maybe if we go talk to the vice president of forecasting, the person who actually loads the spreadsheet with all the budget dollars. Maybe we can figure out something that's in there that we haven't seen before. The thought is not as important as the fact that they're thinking forward and thinking of what's next. Suddenly, we're not worried about the panic of the budget. It is, I'm at a 5 out of 10. I know why I'm thinking something around this challenge, and I know what the next thought needs to be to make that a 6. Third type of thinking question to ask is my favorite question, and it sounds like this. What have you not thought about that could be really useful right now? What have you not thought about? When you ask that question of yourself or someone else, your brain goes into a meta search. What other piece of information way over here, or from yesterday, or the weekend conversation, or what have I not thought about that could be useful? And your brain loves to look for exceptions and things that are missing, like puzzle pieces. And somebody's likely to come up with a useful idea that moves you forward. Step 2 is asking coaching questions that spark thinking in other people's brains. Step 3 is actually one that we talked about if you're old enough to have lived through the 70s. We talked about humble leaders, leaders who are kind of meek, kind of step in the background, put the team first. That is not exactly what this is, but we had some notion back then that leading with humility actually gets better thinking out of a team. And now we have research to prove it. Dr. Brad Owens from the University of Washington did research around humility, and he found 2 behaviors that leaders demonstrate that spark ideas and thinking of people around them when they lead with humility. The first is curiosity. As a leader, I'm not supposed to have all the answers. I know we're told that, but if I start to be curious about where other information might be, or who else might have an answer, then I'm leading with humility and I'm likely to get much better information than if I just count on my own brain, my own experience, and my own expertise to get us through this next challenge. The next thing is to keep learning. Ask people on the team, what do you know? What are you thinking? What's your idea and how can that contribute to this budget crisis or this thing that's come up against us or this new competitor, right? So leading with humility is not about standing in the background. It's not about being meek or mild. It's about putting yourself kind of last for the moment and let everybody else's thinking around you come out first. All right, your 4th step is to actually get in touch with your emotions. Now, we're not going to get warm and fuzzy here. I'm just going to go for science. But you've all been in that moment when you've had an amygdala hijack, where your emotions take over and you have a reaction in the moment that is not adult, it is not helpful, and it's totally driven by emotion. How many of you in the room have or have had a teenager in your household ever? So you know what I'm talking about, right? When the teenager says, no, I'm not going to do that, and then you go ballistic, right? That's an amygdala hijack. And so one of the things we try to do as leaders is to figure out, well, how can I do something different or think better? Because right now, all I am is mad, right, at the teenager or the employee who did something they shouldn't have done. So here are 5 simple ways to really dampen down your emotions so you get back in that shower state or the boat state and to get your emotions to neutral or slightly positive. The first is to start to manage your emotion. And by that, I don't mean control it. You just simply name it. Research shows that if you name the emotion you're feeling, it actually dampens down the amygdala and the emotional center of your brain. When my teenage son does something I don't want him to do, the first thing I say is call out my emotion. I'm feeling furious. Now you would think that would kind of fire me up, but it doesn't. Your brain loves certainty and clarity. And if I'm really specific and I'm accurate about how I name the emotion in my head, my amygdala would actually start to get quiet. We put a functional MRI cap on my head. You'd see an MRI scan, and the emotional center of my brain would go from red to yellow to green. Because my brain says, oh yeah, I know what fury is, and you are furious at him right now. And so now I'm going to dampen that emotion because I'm clear about what that is. And then I get a moment as a parent to do something that's productive, as opposed to just keep ranting at my teenager, right? So name your emotion. The next step is to reframe it. We can't always change a bad picture. The budget's going to be cut. We have a new competitor. They've just slashed prices. My teenager won't do what I tell him to do. But we can start to put different frames around those pictures to try to learn something new. And by a frame, I mean this. You can just put a couple of questions. The 2 easiest frames, ways to reframe a situation, are to ask 1, what can I learn from this? I don't like the fact that our HR budget just got cut, but what can I learn in this moment? It's a great reframe. And the second one is, well, if this is going to happen and I can't change it, well, is there something that benefits me here? Is there something in here that's interesting to me? What is in this for me? And our brains love that because then it can dampen down the emotions and start to focus on new thinking. A third step is to reprioritize or prioritize the work. So if this budget thing is going to happen on a scale of 1 to 10, is this the first top priority for me as an HR leader? Or is it down here at 3 or 4? In the grand scheme of my life, what is this in terms of a priority for me, and where does this fit in? And when your brain gets a sense of where it's prioritized, then you can start to do something constructive about it, even if it's not so good news. A fourth way is to normalize it. And I don't mean to say that we should just take all the bad news and walk away, but think to yourself, is this the first time in the history of the universe that an HR budget got cut? Probably not. We are not usually so unique that this is the only time this kind of bad news or unfavorable news or reaction has ever happened. And when we start to realize that, our brain goes, oh yeah, it's not just about you. It's not only you. And suddenly we can dampen down our emotions and start to think differently or clearly. The final one is keep putting different lenses across this challenge that's come to you. Put the customer lens on this. Well, here's a problem. How would our customers see this and view this? How does my boss see this or view this? What do my peers think about this? What would our competitors think if we use their lens to look at this? It doesn't make the problem go away. We're not trying to be Pollyanna-ish. We're just trying to get our brains to stop the initial emotional reaction so we can think more clearly and have insights and cultivate the change or the innovation we really want in the organization and for ourselves. So, those are 4 simple, no-nonsense neuroscience steps to take. When you need to be more human at work, and I know as people leaders, we're supposed to be, and it's hard, but that's why you're at this conference, to learn how to be that. And it's also a way to cultivate the kind of change or innovation that you want. We carry a lot on our shoulders as HR professionals. And I hope one of the things you learned today was our thinking is important, but sparking the thinking of the people around us is just as important because it can't just be our thinking at the table. We lead all kinds of people at work, and I want you to use some no-nonsense neuroscience to be a better human at work. Thank you very much.